Ever notice how some women don't get upset when you argue, but they get furious when you don't react at all? It's not the disagreement that bothers them, it's the silence. It's you sitting there, calm, unshaken, not giving them the emotional spike they were expecting. And that's because, whether consciously or not, a reaction is proof of impact. When you react, whether it's anger, defensiveness, jealousy, or even hurt, you're confirming that she still has emotional influence over you. When you don't react, you've just pulled the rug out from under that influence. Let's break this down. In human psychology, especially in relationships, people gauge their emotional significance by how much they can move you. If you light up when they praise you and blow up when they challenge you, it tells them they matter in your emotional world. But when you don't flinch, when she throws a jab, pushes a button, or tests your boundaries and you just sit there steady, it scrambles her read on you. She can't tell if she's losing influence, if you've detached, or if you're simply that confident. And that uncertainty can trigger frustration faster than the original issue itself. Here's the blunt truth. Women, like men, test for emotional investment. These tests aren't always malicious. Sometimes they're instinctive. They want to know where they stand with you, and reactions are the easiest metric to read. If she can make you jealous, she knows you care. If she can make you defend yourself, she knows you value her opinion. If she can get you to match her emotional energy, she knows she still has a grip on you. Now imagine she pushes, and nothing happens. That proof she was expecting? Gone. From her perspective, this is more than just you didn't react. It's a disruption to the emotional rhythm she's used to. Maybe in the past guys would bite every time. Maybe you used to bite, and now, suddenly, you're sitting there cool as a stone while she's trying to spark a fire. It's like throwing a punch and hitting a brick wall. The force comes right back at you. From a neuroscience standpoint, reactions create emotional feedback loops. If she says something and you react, her brain gets a hit of dopamine from knowing she caused that reaction. Positive or negative doesn't even matter. It's the stimulation that counts. When you give her nothing, she doesn't get the feedback loop. Instead, she gets ambiguity. And for someone who's wired to seek emotional clarity through your responses, that ambiguity is maddening. This is where the frustration often turns into anger. It's not necessarily anger at you for being wrong. It's anger at the fact that she can't get a read on you. That lack of control over your emotions feels like a loss of leverage. And in relationships, loss of leverage can feel like loss of connection. Now, let's make this clear. Not reacting doesn't mean stonewalling, sulking, or being passive-aggressive. Duh. Those are still reactions, just disguised as withdrawal. We're talking about genuine composure. When you've got your emotional thermostat set, and nobody can yank it up or down without your permission. That level of control is rare. Most people, men and women, run on reflex. Someone pushes, they push back. Someone accuses, they defend. Someone teases, they jab back. That's why when you break the pattern, it stands out. Breaking the pattern creates tension. And tension demands resolution. If she's used to men cracking under pressure, your calm puts her in unfamiliar territory. And not everyone likes unfamiliar territory. This is also why a woman who's emotionally invested will sometimes escalate when you don't react. She might raise her voice, say something sharper, or create a bigger scene. It's not always because she wants to hurt you. Sometimes it's because she's trying harder to get the emotional confirmation she's missing. Think of it like tapping a microphone and not hearing sound. The natural instinct is to tap harder, then louder, until you know it's working. Here's the twist. While your calmness might frustrate her in the moment, it also commands respect in the long run. Why? Because it shows you're not emotionally hijackable. You're not the guy whose mood she can swing with a few words or a subtle dig. You've got a center of gravity she can't shake, and deep down that's attractive. It signals two powerful things. Emotional self-control, which is a hallmark of confidence. Security. You're not threatened by her emotions, so you don't need to mirror them. But make no mistake, this only works if your calm comes from actual self-assurance, not indifference. If you truly don't care, she'll eventually sense that and disengage completely. The power is in caring, but not being controlled. We'll be getting into exactly why certain personalities rely on your reaction as proof of connection, how withholding that reaction changes the power dynamic instantly, and how to maintain composure without coming off as cold or disconnected. Because once you master this, you stop getting dragged into emotional wrestling matches, and you start making every interaction play on your terms. The frustration a woman feels when you don't react doesn't start in the moment. It's built on a history, not just between you and her, but in her overall experiences with people, relationships, and emotional dynamics. Expectation wiring. From an early age, people learn cause and effect in social interactions. You cry as a baby. Someone comes. You smile at someone, they smile back. You tease. They laugh. Your brain starts associating input with output. If I do this, they'll do that. By the time someone is an adult, these little exchanges become deeply ingrained. When she expresses herself, whether it's frustration, sarcasm, or a challenge, she's subconsciously expecting a certain type of feedback. That feedback is her proof that the social script is working. When you don't give that feedback, you've essentially broken the script. And breaking the script feels like a glitch in the system. The power of pattern. Think about the last time you watched a movie that completely broke its own rules halfway through. Confusing, right? That's exactly how she feels when she pushes an emotional button, and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. In most cases, she's used to men reacting in predictable ways. If she criticizes, they defend themselves. If she teases, they jab back. If she flirts, they escalate. If she withdraws, they chase. This predictability gives her a sense of security, not necessarily because she likes the reactions, but because she understands the rhythm. When you step out of that rhythm, it creates uncertainty. Uncertainty, in human psychology, can be more uncomfortable than conflict. Why this feels personal to her? When you don't react, she can read it as indifference, dismissal, or a subtle form of rejection. Even if your calmness has nothing to do with how you feel about her, it challenges her sense of importance in your emotional world. Here's why. Emotional reactions are often read as proof of relevance. If you get angry, you care enough to fight. If you get jealous, you care enough to want exclusivity. If you get defensive, you care enough to protect your image with her. Take those reactions away and she's left wondering, do I even matter here? The ego factor. It's not just about feelings. Ego plays a role too. Most people, men and women, like to believe they have some degree of influence over the people they're close to. It's human nature. When that influence is suddenly unclear, it can feel like a loss of power. For someone who's used to their words carrying weight, your lack of reaction isn't just calm, it's a silent statement. You don't get to steer me. That's both disorienting and, for certain personalities, infuriating. History between you two. If you used to react in the past, if you were quick to defend, quick to argue, or quick to reassure, then your new calmness can feel like a shift in the entire dynamic. It's not just you didn't react this time, it's you're not reacting like you used to. Humans are hyper-aware of changes in behavior from people they know well. When that change reduces the emotional feedback she's used to getting, it stands out even more. Why it escalates instead of fading. You'd think that if you don't react, the situation would just die down. But often, it's the opposite. She escalates, raises her voice, says something sharper, brings up past issues, anything to get a visible response. This is pure feedback seeking. Her brain is wired to close the loop to see a reaction so she can confirm where she stands. When you stay steady, she feels like the loop is still open, so she pushes harder to close it. How society trains this behavior. Let's be real. The culture we live in glorifies emotional expression and instant feedback. Social media thrives on it. Say something provocative, watch the comments flood in. Post a picture, watch the likes roll up. We're all conditioned to expect immediate reactions. So in a relationship, when she's expecting her comment, tone, or story to land with impact, and it doesn't, it's like posting online and getting 0 likes. You start wondering if something's wrong with the post, with the audience, or with yourself. Your role in the build-up. If you've always been calm and measured, her frustration may be milder. She knows what to expect. But if you've been reactive in the past, you've actually helped train her to anticipate emotional fireworks. That means your shift to composure feels like a withdrawal of something she thought was part of the deal. It's not just about this one moment. It's about breaking the historical rhythm between you. The silent message you're sending. When you don't react, you're sending an unspoken message. I'm not emotionally hijackable. I don't measure my self-worth through your approval or disapproval. I can care about you without letting you dictate my emotional state. This is a powerful position, but it's also why the lack of reaction hits harder than most men expect. You've removed the quickest proof she has of her influence. When you see all these factors layered, social conditioning, ego, emotional testing, and past history, it's no wonder she gets mad when you don't react. You're not just skipping a fight. You're disrupting her sense of rhythm, relevance, and influence. If you really want to understand why she gets mad when you don't react, you have to stop looking at the surface argument and start looking at the mechanics underneath. Because this isn't just about the words exchanged, it's about how human beings gauge connection, power, and security. Reactions as proof of emotional bond. In many relationships, emotions are measured by visibility. If she can see your feelings, she feels closer to you. A raised voice, a sharp reply, a jealous question. These all register as proof that you're invested. It's not that she consciously wants conflict, it's that conflict confirms you're still plugged into her emotionally. When you don't react, she loses that visible proof. And for some personalities, that gap between what they feel internally and what they can see externally is deeply uncomfortable. The influence gauge. Every person in a close relationship keeps a mental influence gauge, a sense of how much their words, actions, and presence matter to the other person. When she says something provocative and you respond strongly, her influence gauge spikes. When she gets no visible response, the gauge drops. And it's not always about ego. Sometimes it's about reassurance. Your reaction says, I'm still engaged with you. You still matter enough to move me. Without that, she has to guess. And most people don't like guessing when it comes to their emotional standing. Why women rely on emotional feedback more than men. Biologically and socially, women tend to be more attuned to emotional signals. From evolutionary psychology, this makes sense. Reading emotions accurately was a survival skill for children, for social alliances, for navigating group dynamics. As a result, many women place more weight on emotional responsiveness as a marker of connection. When you don't give that response, it's not just he's calm. It can feel like he's distant, even if you're not. The threat to the frame. In social dynamics, the frame is the perspective or narrative that dominates an interaction. When she says something designed to get a rise out of you, she's attempting to set the frame. I can influence your emotions. If you bite, you've stepped into her frame. If you don't, you've just kept the frame for yourself. This is why calmness can trigger frustration. It's not just that she didn't get a reaction, it's that she lost control of the frame she was trying to set. Here's the part that isn't talked about enough. Not reacting isn't passive. It's an active display of emotional sovereignty. It says, I choose when and how I respond, regardless of external pressure. That's rare. Most people are reaction-driven. They run on emotional reflex. So when you're the guy who can absorb emotional energy without flinching, it disrupts the usual balance, and disruption often feels like loss of power. From an evolutionary standpoint, the ability to influence a partner's emotions had practical value. If she could get you to react to anger, to protectiveness, to urgency, it meant she could rely on you to respond to threats or changes. Your responsiveness was part of her survival net. Fast forward to modern relationships and the threat might just be a disagreement or a test, but the instinct is the same. If you don't react, her subconscious reads it as reduced readiness, a subtle question mark over whether you'd act when it matters. When calmness feels like distance, there's a fine line between being composed and being emotionally unavailable. If you've been calm in a connected, present way, your lack of reaction can earn respect. If you've been emotionally checked out for a while, your lack of reaction just confirms the distance. This is why two men can both not react, but get completely different results. One maintains eye contact, listens, and responds thoughtfully. She feels heard, even if he's steady. The other withdraws completely. She feels ignored, dismissed, or unimportant. If she's used to measuring closeness through emotional back and forth, your lack of reaction can make her feel like she's losing you. And fear of loss often shows up as pressure, escalation, or even picking fights. She's trying to spark the connection back, even if it's through conflict. It's a paradox. She doesn't want you angry, but she'd rather you be angry than unmovable. Because anger still feels like engagement. The hidden respect factor. Here's the twist. While your lack of reaction can frustrate her in the short term, it often plants a seed of respect in the long term. It signals you're not emotionally hijackable. You're stable, consistent, and self-governing. Most people, men and women, may fight against that stability in the moment, but they value it over time. Why? Because deep down, everyone wants a partner who can stay steady when the heat's on. The real risk, the only time not reacting becomes a genuine problem, is when it's a shield for disinterest. If your calm is just emotional absence, you're not holding the frame, you've dropped it entirely. And in that case, her frustration isn't about control, it's about realizing she's alone in the relationship. The difference is simple. Composure is engagement without volatility. Disinterest is detachment without investment. When you understand these deeper layers, influence gauge, frame control, evolutionary wiring, you stop seeing her reaction as overreacting and start seeing it as a sign you've disrupted the way she reads the connection. Sometimes that disruption is good. Sometimes it's a warning. The skill is knowing which. Most men hear, "She gets mad when I don't react," and think the goal is to never react to anything again. That's not power, that's being a mannequin. The win isn't in being emotionally numb. The win is in choosing what's worth reacting to, and how you react, so you keep control without killing connection. Reframe non-reaction as a decision, not a default. A lot of guys think composure is just about holding a poker face until the storm passes. But real composure is proactive. You decide in advance that your emotions are yours to govern, and not something anyone else can drag out of you on command. That means you don't just not react. You stay present, you listen, you engage on your terms. You're calm, but you're not checked out. The key shift. She needs to know you're unshakable, not uninterested. Why this makes you more respectable. When you only react to what's truly worth your energy, you set a standard. It tells her and everyone else that you're not a puppet for other people's emotional triggers. This doesn't just affect how she sees you, it changes how you see yourself. Because every time you hold your frame, you reinforce the identity of a man who's in control. Over time, that becomes part of your baseline, not something you have to think about, but something you naturally are. Separate the emotional bait from the core message. Women, like men, sometimes throw emotional bait without even realizing it. It could be sarcasm, a challenge, or a provocative comment. If you bite instantly, you're reacting to the bait, not the message. The frame shift is this. Pause, identify the actual message beneath the delivery, and respond to that. That way you're still engaged, but you're not being dragged into the emotional frame she set. Example. If she says, "Wow, you clearly don't care about me anymore," instead of defending yourself, you can calmly ask, "Why do you feel that way?" You're not ignoring her. You're shifting the focus from emotional escalation to clarity. Use non-reaction as a test of depth. Here's the part most guys never realize. Your ability to stay composed under pressure actually reveals what's real between you. If she's invested in the relationship, your calmness will eventually settle her down, because she'll sense stability. If she's addicted to drama or thrives on chaos, your calmness will frustrate her into leaving. Either way, you win. You either deepen the bond or filter out someone who's incompatible with the way you live. Don't mistake loudness for importance. One of the biggest traps men fall into is reacting to the loudest thing in the room, not the most important. Just because she's passionate, animated, or sharp in her delivery doesn't mean the topic deserves equal emotional intensity from you. If you treat every spike in volume like an emergency, you're training yourself to live at her emotional pace instead of your own. The perspective shift is to treat every situation by its real weight, not its emotional presentation. Protect the frame without crushing the connection. The goal here isn't to win every interaction by staying stoic until she tires out. That might protect your ego, but it starves the relationship. The real goal is to protect your frame while still allowing emotional intimacy. You can acknowledge her feelings, explore the problem, and offer solutions, all without raising your voice or losing your center. Think of it like a seasoned pilot hitting turbulence. He doesn't ignore it. He adjusts calmly, keeps the passengers informed, and stays in control of the plane. That's how you want to show up in the relationship. Anchor your reactions to your principle. Another big perspective shift. Don't decide whether to react based on how she's acting. Decide based on your principles. If respect is a principle, you only engage in respectful exchanges. If clarity is a principle, you only engage in conversations that aim towards solutions, not chaos. This makes your reactions consistent and predictable, which builds trust even if she doesn't like every outcome. Understand the long game. Right now, her getting mad when you don't react might feel like a battle to win. But zoom out. This is really about establishing a relational pattern. If the pattern is I poke, you react, you'll spend the whole relationship on defense. If the pattern is I poke, you stay steady and respond intentionally, you train the relationship to run on mutual respect instead of emotional reflex. That long game creates less volatility, less manipulation, and more stability. The male advantage of controlled reactions. Women are generally more comfortable in emotional expression. Men who can stay composed without being emotionally absent bring a rare balance, the ability to hold space without losing themselves. That balance is magnetic because it makes you the calm center in her storm. And while she may resist it in the moment, it becomes one of the things she trusts you for over time. This is the perspective you need. Your lack of reaction isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about setting the emotional tone of the relationship. When you control the tone, you control the pace. When you control the pace, you control the frame. And when you control the frame, you stop being pulled into every spike of emotion and start leading from a place of stability. If you want to keep your composure without letting her mistake it for disinterest, you need more than just stay calm. You need a system, a way to respond that keeps you in control of the frame, while still showing you're engaged. Step 1. Ground yourself before you engage. The biggest mistakes happen when you start talking before you've stabilized yourself. If she's coming in hot, your body's natural fight or flight kicks in. Your heart rate climbs, your breathing changes, your muscles tense. You can't respond intentionally from that state. You'll either snap or withdraw. So before you say a word, take 2 slow breaths, relax your shoulders, and plant your feet. This sends a message to your own nervous system. We're in control. It also subtly communicates to her that you're steady, not shaken. Step 2. Show presence without matching emotion. Women equate non-reaction with disconnection when you look like you've checked out. That's why you need to keep your body language and eye contact engaged, even if your tone stays calm. Face her fully, nod occasionally, and give short verbal acknowledgements like, I hear you, or go on. You're proving you're still in the conversation without surrendering to the emotional tempo she's trying to set. Step 3. Separate the emotion from the topic. Often the thing she's emotional about isn't the actual thing she's emotional about. It's layered. If she says you never listen to me, that might not be about one conversation. It might be about a pattern she feels over time. Instead of defending yourself against the surface claim, address the feeling beneath it. Example: it sounds like you've been feeling unheard lately. Tell me more about what's making you feel that way. This moves the conversation into clarity without you reacting defensively. Step 4. Control the pace of the exchange. Fast exchanges escalate emotion. Slow exchanges lower the temperature. If she's speaking quickly or stacking points, you don't have to match her speed. You can pause before answering, and if necessary, you can even say, let's slow down so I can understand you clearly. You're not shutting her down. You're refusing to get dragged into a pace that pushes you toward emotional reflex instead of intentional response. Step 5. Choose when to react. Don't be forced into it. Sometimes, a visible reaction is the right move, but it has to be on your terms. If she shares something that's truly serious, showing strong emotion can deepen trust. The difference is, you're choosing to show it, not being provoked into it. This is the difference between a king addressing his court and a jester reacting to hecklers. One moves with intention, the other gets played. Step 6. Use power questions instead of defenses. Defending yourself keeps the frame in her hands. Questioning, in a calm, curious tone, takes it back. If she says, you don't care about how I feel, instead of that's not true, try, what makes you feel that way? Or, what would it look like if I did care in a way that lands for you? These questions shift the conversation from accusation to exploration, and they require her to slow down and think. Step 7. End without loose threads. If the conversation is going in circles, you need to know how to close it without storming out or looking avoidant. A strong closer acknowledges her perspective, states yours, and offers the next step. Example: I hear what you're saying, and I see where you're coming from. I'm not reacting the way you expected because I want us to actually solve this, not just get worked up. Let's revisit this when we're both clear-headed. That's leadership, ending in a way that preserves respect for both of you. Step 8. Train the dynamic over time. This strategy isn't a one-time stunt. You're training a new pattern in the relationship. If every heated moment in the past led to you getting drawn into emotional escalation, she's conditioned to expect that. Now, your consistent composure combined with engaged communication rewires that expectation. Over time, she stops reading your calm as disinterest and starts reading it as stability. Step 9. Keep building your outside life. The strongest composure comes from having a full life outside the relationship. When you have purpose, friendships, physical discipline, and personal goals, you're harder to emotionally hijack because your identity isn't tied to this one interaction. That outside foundation makes your calm authentic, not performative. It's the difference between I'm pretending I'm fine and I actually am fine. Step 10. Know when to walk. If she consistently escalates, refuses to respect your composure, and thrives on chaos, no strategy will fix it. Some people aren't looking for resolution. They're looking for volatility. The most masculine move in those cases is to step out entirely. Your energy is finite. Your attention is currency. Don't invest in a dynamic that punishes your stability. The beauty of this strategy is that it keeps you in the driver's seat without turning you into a cold wall. You stay calm, but you're still leading. You're engaged, but you're not reactive. You're open, but you're in control. And in relationships, as in life, control over yourself is the highest ground you can hold. If there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that your reaction is a resource. It's not free. It's not automatic. And the man who learns to control when and how he reacts becomes impossible to manipulate, not just in relationships but in every part of life. The man who can't be rattled. Picture two men walking into a storm. One fights the wind, cursing and stumbling with every gust. The other walks with steady steps, head up, unfazed. Who commands more respect? It's the same in relationships. When you react to every poke, prod, or emotional spike, you're at the mercy of someone else's tempo. When you choose your moments, you're the one setting the pace. And here's the irony. The man who doesn't react to every little thing gets taken more seriously when he finally does react. Because his reactions are rare, they carry weight. Why this is about leadership, not games. Some guys hear this and think, so the goal is to ignore her to win. No, that's not control, that's avoidance. This isn't about withholding emotion to punish her. It's about leading the emotional tone of the relationship. When you lead, you decide when intensity is needed and when calm is better. That steadiness creates trust. Women respect men who can handle their own emotions without being swept away. They feel safer with them. And safety, contrary to what some think, is one of the strongest drivers of lasting attraction. The hidden respect in your calm. Yes, she might get mad when you don't react in the moment. She might accuse you of not caring. She might push harder. But over time, if your calm is paired with genuine presence and care, it earns a kind of respect that reactive men never get. Because deep down, everyone knows if you can't control yourself, you can't control much else. Turn her frustration into your leverage. Every time she gets frustrated by your composure, you have two choices. Break frame and prove she can pull you out of it. Hold frame and let her adapt. If she adapts, the dynamic improves. If she doesn't, you've learned she's not compatible with the way you operate, and you save yourself years of emotional turbulence. Both outcomes are wins. React for impact, not reflect. Make this your rule. React when it matters, not when you're triggered. Triggered reactions are about defending your ego. Impact reactions are about protecting the relationship or your principles. If you're calm 90% of the time, that 10% when you stand up with fire in your voice will hit like a lightning bolt. She'll know, okay, this is serious. That's the difference between noise and signal. Build the core that makes this natural. You can't fake this long term. If your calm is just an act, she'll sense it, and the cracks will show. Real composure comes from self-respect, knowing your worth isn't up for negotiation. Purpose, having a mission outside of the relationship. Physical discipline, a body trained to handle stress, handles emotions better. Mental clarity, Knowing your values so you can respond by them, not by mood. When these are in place, not reacting isn't a trick, it's who you are. Stop treating reaction as proof of love. One of the reasons men get caught in reactive cycles is because they think blowing up, chasing or defending shows they care. It doesn't. What shows you care is being engaged, consistent and reliable, not letting the whole mood hinge on the moment's emotion. Reactiveness feels like passion in the short term. Composure feels like strength in the long term. Your emotional gravity. Think of yourself as the anchor in the relationship. The waves can crash, the wind can howl, but you don't get dragged around. Instead, you keep the ship steady. When you live this way, you stop being afraid of her anger. You stop being pulled into every emotional current. And you stop needing her to validate your state of mind because you already own it. That's emotional gravity. People feel it. And when they feel it, they adjust to it. The new standard. From now on, you don't react to prove you care. You don't match chaos with chaos. You only react when it aligns with your principles or your mission. Everything else, you acknowledge, you stay present, you lead. When that's your standard, women stop testing for control and start leaning on your stability. You go from being another man she can emotionally sway to being the man she respects enough to follow. Final word, she might get mad when you don't react. Let her, because the man who can weather her frustration without losing his center is the man she will remember when all the noise fades. Your emotions are not a public playground. They're a fortress, and only the people who respect the walls get invited inside. If you want to keep that power, you don't build the walls higher. You strengthen the foundation. And that foundation is you, your discipline, your mission, your values. When those are solid, no one can yank you out of yourself. Not in love. Not in life. Hit subscribe, drop your story in the comments, and share this with the guy in your circle who blows up at every little thing. Because the sooner he learns this, the sooner he stops losing the game before it even starts.